I am Thomas, and I hope all is well. And this is 1907. Picture it! In the great words of Sophia Petrillo from Golden Girls. Picture it! Herald Square region, 1907. A woman by the name of Ida Wood called up two of her close relatives, booked a room at the Herald Square Hotel in New York City. This is Herald Square, as you see pictured. And she shut that door as she makes her way into Herald Square Hotel, 1907. As the years passed, she and the others stayed firmly, without movement, inside that one room. And it wasn't until 1931 that Ida Wood cracked open the door and stepped back into the world. For 20 some odd years, 24 some odd years, that door, she would never leave that room until, the time finally came, like we mentioned in 1931. She stepped back into the world, and that was only to do so because of her relatives. Her sister, because one of her relatives, her sister, was dying. 24 years in seclusion. And I want to take you to where the Herald Square Hotel stood. What's that current address? But the lawyers who responded to the scene had a number of questions about Wood, then in her 90s. But the more investigators learned about her, the more bizarre her story seemed. For one, the frail old recluse was actually a wealthy former socialite. For another, the name Ida Wood was fake. Indeed, Wood, she had moved to New York City in 1857. Let me tell you the story of Ida Wood. Born January 14th, 1838, as Ellen Walsh. And Ellen Walsh was the daughter of recent immigrants to the United States. She grew up in Massachusetts, but in 1857, at the age of 19, she decided to move to the Big Apple. And the Big Apple, of course, is New York City. And, she was, in Massachusetts is where she had grown up. But, again, New York City, onwards to bigger things. This is how New York looked at that time. Right around the time that Ida. Well, how did she get the name Ida? Well, Ellen Walsh, she said her past, and she became known by the name of Ida Mayfield. Ida Mayfield was not an immigrant's daughter. She was the child of Henry Mayfield, a wealthy Louisiana sugar planter, and Anne Mary Crawford, who could trace her lineage back to the Earls of Crawford. And Ida Mayfield had a plan to climb the social ladder in New York. After reading the social pages, Ida Mayfield learned about a wealthy businessman named Benjamin Wood, the brother of the former mayor of New York City. Though Benjamin was married, Mayfield decided to write him. Quote, "I venture to address you from hearing a young lady, one of your former loves, speak of you," she wrote. She says that you are fond of new faces. I fancied as I am new in the city and in affairs de coeur, yes, you heard that I might contract an agreeable intimacy with you of as long duration as you saw fit to have it. I believe that I am not extremely bad looking, nor disagreeable. Perhaps not quite as handsome as the lady with you at the present, but I know a little more. And there is an old saying that knowledge is power. That brazen letter worked. Ida Mayfield became Benjamin Wood's mistress and seemingly gave birth to his daughter, Emma. And there is Mr. Wood. And in 1867, Ida Mayfield became Ida Wood after the death of Benjamin's first wife, Delilah, or Delia. Practically overnight, Ellen Walsh became a New York socialite. In 1860, she danced with the Prince of Wales. The next year, she met President-elect Abraham Lincoln when he passed through the city. Newspapers spoke of her fondly as a belle of New Orleans, with bright plumage and fragile beauty. She had successfully aligned herself with a wealthy businessman. Benjamin Wood owned and operated the New York Daily News, but Ida's chosen paramour was also a gambler. He had found money easy to make and even easier to spend, like many New Yorkers of his time. And then Benjamin's nephew remarked, according to a 1932 article in the New York Times, but Ida knew what it was like to be poor and found a way to isolate herself from her husband's gambling losses. Now, Ida said that her husband, he could gamble as long as she received half of all his winnings and he paid for all his losses. Good idea for Ida. Good deal, right? When Benjamin died in 1900, he had left her his $2 million estate. And Ida even inherited ownership of the New York Daily News. But Ida Wood would use her riches in an unusual way. A year after her husband died, Ida Wood sold his newspaper, the Daily News, for $250,000. That was a fortune in 1901. She also sold many of her possessions as well. And during the Panic of 1907, Wood declared that she was tired of everything and withdrew $1 million. That equates to more than $30 million today, in today's money, from her account at Guarantee Trust Company. Then, alongside her sister, Mary, and her daughter, Ellen, she checked into room 552 at the Herald Square Hotel. A bellhop later stated that he had knocked on the door of room 552 daily to see if the woman needed anything. So, the bellhop was concerned that they needed anything. And what do you think? These millionaire family, what did they order? Crackers, coffee, evaporated milk, bacon, eggs, and sometimes fish. Sometimes they requested Havana cigars and jars of petroleum jelly, which Ida had rubbed into her face. The bellhop remembered that Ida Wood routinely tipped him 10 cents, but begrudgingly, as if it were the only money she had in the world. The woman in room 552, they were known to be odd characters, but Ida Wood always paid her bills in cash. And cash is king, right? And when you pay in cash, the hotel did not mind getting payments in cash. The world that Ida Wood had built at the Herald Square Hotel began to fall apart. In 1928, her daughter Emma got sick. Emma went to the hospital and she died at the age of 71. Then, in 1931, Ida's sister Mary, she fell ill, forcing 93-year-old Ida to open the door, and, well, she called for help. Mary died, but not before numerous people came and went from room 552. What was in room 552? In seclusion for so many years. Never left. The room, well, was stuffed full of junk. Piles of newspapers which had turned yellow. Old discarded balls of string. But Ida Wood, she appeared far from a destitute hoarder. Still, extraordinary pretty. She claimed that she was a wealthy former socialite, the widow of the late Benjamin Wood. To the surprise of the lawyers called to the scene, Ida seemed to be telling the truth. A search of room 552 turned up $247,200. Cash, stuffed well in a shoebox. And nurses who searched Ida found $500,000 in one of her dress pockets. In the hotel's basement, where Ida stored dozens of her trunks, investigators found fine fabrics, jewelry, gold certificate, and other treasures. Now, still, given the state of Ida's suite, the hotel, they decided to move Ida to a room on the 4th floor. Why? She demanded. I can take care of myself. But Ida's nephew by marriage, Otis Wood, disagreed. He pushed the courts to declare Ida incompetent. And, well, the courts, they had agreed. I did quite well, and it seems strange that they should call me incompetent, Ida would tell reporters during that time. I made money and I kept it. So many people whom everyone considers competent, well, they can't do that. She's true, right? As tales of the millionaire Recluse made headlines across the country, more than 1,000 people all of a sudden claimed to be Ida's long-lost relatives. But when Ida Wood died at the age of 94 in 1932, her lawyers and alleged relatives, well, they had stumbled upon one last Hollywood twist. Well, one of them being that her name was not Ida Wood. It never had been Ida Mayfield. Her name was Ellen Walsh. Her lawyers also discovered that Emma Wood was not her daughter, but another sister. Eventually, her legitimate relatives in Ireland, England, and the United States, most of whom had never heard of her, well, they had inherited her wealth. Remember, she died in 1932 at the age of 94. With that, the story of Ida Wood came to an end. Kind of an odd chapter in New York City history, a city that has a lot of tales that long ago people have forgotten. Girl named Ellen Walsh reinvented herself and then just decided to withdraw from the world. I've done numerous famous graves, right, from anyone from Leona Helmsley, which was a famous hotel kind of owner of many hotels, where her grave is it's like another, like a 3,500 square foot house. You could see that on this channel. Two other graves where they are very Like, simple and plain. You never know and how people manage their wealth. This is where the hotel once stood, and this is what it's in its place right now. Just a really weird story, someone that just chose to lock herself out from the outside world and was just living for many of years just within those walls. Just one last look, and they are buried here in Calvary Cemetery, locally in Long Island. Haven't visited their final resting spot, but again, maybe in the near future. So I hope all is well, and I look forward to speaking to you in my very next video. Take care, and we'll chat soon.